I mean, with something like World of Warships, I think it can be beneficial for as many people as want to stream on that, because then you can switch between the channels and get a spread of what everybody's doing. And if one person dies, you can always watch the other one up close. And Bad for Ben, thank you for the cheers. You are number one. So I've been spending most of my viewing time this last week watching Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which is not a game I will ever play myself. Because I am really well past it when it comes to hand-eye coordination for games like that. But watching the story is kind of a fun thing. I've done similar with the more recent Assassin's Creed. Trying to think what else I've watched. Can't remember what else I've watched, but there's a lot of sort of storyline games where I'll watch it for the story, and usually the person who's playing it, if they're any good, or they don't even have to be good at playing the game, so long as they can be entertaining playing the game. That's half the point of a stream or a YouTuber. So it's definitely a good looking game. I know some of the people are saying there are issues with it and some of the controls, but yeah, as far as the story goes, it's quite well done. As I said, not my style of game. I would just get frustrated with it and throw things. Even without the issues. What modded maps would I recommend? In general, anything by Oxygen David are good maps. And for the most part, he bases his maps on real-world locations. There are some made-up areas. Shamrock Valley, I believe, is made up. Lone Oak Farm, I believe, is made up. But a lot of the rest of his maps, going back through Farm Sim 17, are all real-world locations. And can be quite challenging, because he's a British map maker for the most part. And so you've got the narrow lanes, the steep hills, the tight fields, so they can be quite a challenge to play and find suitable equipment to work on them. I also like the Old Stream Farm, which is a small map. It's very difficult to make money because the fields are small. Your harvests are going to be small, and the equipment you're going to be using is generally going to be fairly small, around about 200 horsepower or less. This map is very flat, but quite big, has over 100 fields. I've picked some very small fields to start on, so I'm using this tiny little tractor, which doesn't even have 100 horsepower. And the equipment I'm using is very small as well. But I don't know that I would recommend it. But I am, it's kind of fun doing something a little bit different outside of my normal, normal maps that I play. Most part I play UK maps, or European maps. Very, very rarely I'll find an American map I enjoy. Most of them tend to be a little bit unrealistic. They don't feel quite right. But they do allow you to use some of the really big sort of New Holland T9s and big bud equipment if you want. But at that point, if you're using a standard size map, you're usually down to about 10 fields, and they are huge. And I like to feel like I've got a lot done during a day. So while Lawfolds is quite a big map with some quite large fields, comparatively speaking to what I'd normally play, on Saturday I harvested one field. We got halfway through ploughing it. We sold a bunch of silage. I think I fertilised the grass fields. I mean, not just me personally, but using workers, I was able to get what I felt was a lot done. And that's a little bit different to what I can do on this particular map with the amount of money I have and the amount of equipment I have. I can't hire a worker to do something for me, and there's no point because I've got 3 fields. So it's not like I've got an overabundance of work to do to keep the farm going. I mean, right now we're cultivating somebody else's field with our equipment. And we'll probably spend the next 3 or 4 game days doing that. That'll take us through to summer. Still, during summer I've got nothing to do as well. But we've got fields to keep an eye on. Might need to buy a liquid fertilizer. 27,800. Right. So that we can kill the weeds. I don't know how extensive the weed infestation is going to get. If it stays like it is right now, I'm not going to worry about it. But the problem is you plough the weeds, or you cultivate the weeds, or you plant seed over the weeds, and that patch of weeds will always come back until you deal with it properly. So it is going to end up at a point where I really need to do something about the weeds, because they are going to be a significant problem. But right now, I think my 3 fields have 2 patches of weeds over 2 of them. And they're not a big area of weeds, so I'm not going to worry about them right now. But there's always the chance more weed patches will grow, and those will never go away unless I put herbicide down on them. So like this field here has a whole bunch of weeds on it, and me running this cultivator over this field is not going to make a blind bit of difference. They are going to come back. However, yeah, I'm not worried about this field. We did get lucky with our germination. The first 2 fields we planted have fully germinated, so that's now going to be on the way to a good yield. It depends what the moisture level of the fields are over the growing period. We could end up with some of the crop dying if if the conditions turn drought. But for right now, I'm looking at 100% growth with 100% fertilization on those 2 fields, or close to it, which is good because we need all the income we can get to keep this farm afloat. And I think when it comes to maps, I do go back and play the ones I know. So I've played Old Stream Farms, both Farm Sim 17 and Farm Sim 19, and I didn't really care that I was playing the same map again, because it was an enjoyable map to play. I didn't play Old Oak Farm on Farm Sim 17, but I think I'm planning to play Old Oak Farm on, Oakfield Farm. I am planning to play Oakfield Farm on Farm Sim 19 at some time. So that kind of, you're not branching out into new maps that are out there, but there aren't that many new maps. Marwell Manor was a new map. Field Mountain was a beautiful map. I don't think it's on the Mod Hub. And I got the link for it from watching one of the YouTubers that does map reviews. So someone like Farmer Klein or Virtual Farmer, I think, do map reviews. And I got the link for that map from them, or from their YouTube video, and it's an incredibly beautiful map, but it's heavily forested, and so if you're not into forestry, there's only about 5-6 fields on the map that you can do agricultural work on, and there's a lot of distance between those fields, so you're going to do a lot of traveling. But it's a nice map. It's quite graphics intensive because of all the trees. But there's a lot of maps which just they don't feel right. It's sort of, I don't find them exciting, and so I won't stick playing them. And yeah, Oakfield is really steep. I have played a couple of trials on it, and I found even a Class Axion 940 struggles on those fields with not a lot of equipment behind it. So that map is going to be a challenge. Probably end up with a Zerion or 2 at the end of the day. But I hear Oxygen Dave is working on some other maps. At least one of which is a brand new map. which will be nice to explore. I did try out Marwell Manor, and that is once again a nice map. It feels right, partly because it's based in the real world. Yeah, my criticisms were that, apart from my usual gripe of I'd like to build the farm myself with the farm buildings you've provided me with, which is not something that Oxygen David's into, but also the fact that the starting farm included 3 fields, and at least with the way FS19 is done, and it's something that Black Sheep did with the Old Stream farm, was the starting farm came with the 7 surrounding fields, which meant if you wanted to do a farm manager or start from scratch, you didn't have any option but to buy the entire plot with the 7 fields, and that can be troublesome when you're starting on a start from scratch with only 500,000 money to play with, and you can't even afford the yard. Now, what he did do was, when he released his 1.1 patch, I think it was, he split the farm, so you have the yard and the field right out front of it, maybe the field out back, I can't remember, and then each of the other fields is a separate field, and he stopped selling plots of land that involved 3 or 4 fields and cut them down into individual fields. And so I think his Black Sheep's Old Stream farm in the latest incarnation, which is seasons ready as well, is a nice map, and it's a good starting map even if you don't want to start new farmer. And the problem with Marwell Manor is you still get those two huge fields, and you need, if you're going to work them efficiently, you kind of need big equipment to work them with. And when running around with a 3-meter cedar on Marwell Manor is going to be a problem, because you're going to be running back to the yard to refill with seed every 5 minutes. What do I think makes a nice map? I don't know. I like something that I have the option of not starting with what the map maker wants me to have. So I can pick my own equipment, I can pick my own yard, I can pick my own buildings. This map doesn't lend myself to that. The yards all have buildings in. But outside of that, it's... As a streamer, I want something that I can turn over quickly, so I'm not doing one... Oh, that was me. Not sure what was disconnecting, reconnecting there, sorry about that. So I like something that I can do a task and then switch to another task and switch to another task. I don't like, in general, I don't like working maps with big fields. A field that it takes me 3-4 hours to harvest is not a good map, because I'm having to do one job for a long time, possibly 2 or 3 gaming sessions. However, once you've got an established farm, or if you cheat in the money, playing a big map isn't so much of a problem because I can afford a couple of larger tractors, so I can be doing something and I can set a worker off doing something that's going to take a long time, and I just have to run around and service the tasks that the workers are doing. So if I've got one that's harvesting, I'm going to be jumping into a tractor to unload the harvester every so often, but I'm not going to spend 4 hours harvesting. If I've got what else? I mean, like I was doing on Saturday, I had the harvester running, I had baler running on follow me behind it, and I was jumping into one tractor to unload the harvester, then I was jumping into a truck to remove the bales from the field. So I'm kept doing lots and lots of different tasks. Yeah, it's all on the same field, but between times I'm also preparing other things that I need done on the farm. So, a field needs fertilizing, I'll just go off and get a tractor and put the fertilizer on the back and load it up with fertilizer. Harvester needs unloading, I'll jump off and unload the harvester, back to the fertilizer, let's drive it down to the field and stick it on a worker, and off he goes. So I'm not getting bored doing one thing over and over again. Yes, and that is a good thing, and I think that's where Marwell doesn't work well, because it has a lot. You start off with some of the biggest fields on the map, and you're starting out. You've got to buy the seeds, you've got to buy the fertilizer, and you've not got a lot of money starting out. Now, I mean, this map is going to start getting more challenging as I go along if I'm doing contracts, because at the moment I'm just doing what am I doing here? Cultivating and ploughing contracts, and frankly, that doesn't cost me any money except gasoline, diesel, and repair costs on the tractor. But when we come down to fertilizing, I'm going to have to buy a ton of fertilizer if I fertilize a big field, and that's going to cost me a bit. Now, at least with a contract I get paid for the fertilizer. And if I borrow the equipment I get refunded for it. But yeah, it's having a map that you can start small and grow into. Mercury Farm was a good map, or Mercury Farms is a good map for starting out and expanding, in part because you can chop the fences and hedges down and make the fields you start with larger. Yes, and that people complain about giants, and I did hear rumour that the reason the class expansion didn't have a map in is because people just keep slamming the giants maps. But really, their maps are very well designed for starting out small and working your way up. I mean, Goldcrest was a great map for expanding into. But because it's harder to make money now, I think the Old Stream Farm suffers a bit in that, you get 7 starting fields and they're all small, but at the end of the first harvest you really don't have much money, more money than you started with. I think what I'd ended up with, and I only played the Old Stream Farm with seasons once, and I played 1 year on 6-day season, and at the end of that year I think I had all the equipment I needed to work the farm. But I think I started out with I started out with 100,000 because I started the farm as a new player, whatever it is, new farmer mode, because I wanted the farm there. But I sold all the equipment, every single piece of equipment, sold it all, and then bought new equipment as I needed it. So we started life out. I need a tractor. I need to plough some of the field, or I needed to plough all of the fields, so I rented a plough. Because once the fields have been ploughed, there's no reason for me to plough it again, unless I plant corn, potatoes or sugar beets. So no plan on that, at least for the first year, so rent the plough. Then I had to lime all of the fields. So I rented a spreader. I think I rented a spreader and spread lime on every field. And then that was done. Then I bought the seeder and planted every single field. So we've now got a field to go every single year. And I bought select other equipment that I needed frequently. So at the end of the year, I had as much money as I'd started the farm with, about 100,000. But I had all the equipment I needed for, the ongoing farm. But I'm not sure how much more money I would have made in the second year. It's not like Lawfolds where, it was a struggle to start out with because I couldn't afford workers, I could barely afford the seed, I could barely afford the fertilizer. But at the end of that first year, because you start that map with 10 mostly 4-hectare fields, the income was incredible. You ended the first year with over $500,000 income from all the crops you harvested. And while I didn't have all the equipment I needed, or at least the size of equipment that I needed to be able to work the farm efficiently, that second year I added to the equipment. The third year I added to the equipment, and it was very easy to make the farm more and more profitable, buy more land, because the income on the farm was that much better. So you don't really want a map that your income is limited because of the amount of land you can buy, and thus the amount of income you can generate from that land. But you don't want something too big that it's just boring working all the fields, because it just takes too long. And that first year on Lawfolds, I did end up using workers, but the workers were at the point where the farm's making money, and it was a case of I need workers out in the fields because I've got to get this harvest in the next 16 hours because there's rain due in the afternoon, and I won't be able to harvest for the rest of the day, and winter's coming. And I need 10 fields harvested by winter. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons I do like playing with seasons, is because it does put a hard limit on, if you want to get all the income you can make done, you've got a time limit. There's a hard stop. Winter comes, your crop's dead, and you lose everything. Oh, go on. What's the interesting mod idea? I mean, one thing I would like to see for for 19 because of seasons was the what was it? Irrigation. Because with seasons, dry weather can kill your crops and result in a less than a 100% yield.